Welcome back to another episode of Swamp Stories. This time we head to Detroit, Michigan. Ooh, even saying that gives me goosebumps, and it should give you goosebumps as well, unless you've been living under a rock. But in order for this video to make sense, we need to take you back into history. But before that, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new to Swamp Stories. Let's head back to the 1950s, a time when Detroit was the wealthiest city in America. Yes, you heard that correctly. Detroit was once the wealthiest city in America. Some even claim it was the wealthiest city in the world. That's because of the automotive industry. Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler were all headquartered in Detroit. These companies were thriving, and it opened up thousands of good jobs. Because of these opportunities, so many people began moving to Detroit. The number one place people moved from was the South, and the vast majority of them were African American. They found good jobs, bought homes, but things took a left turn. The locals were not very accepting, and that's putting it in a nice way. They did not like the shifting demographics of their city, so they did everything in their power to hold these people back. This seems like a common theme in American history, but they were not hired by the police department, fire department, and they were not permitted to move up within companies either. On top of this, local banks would not grant them loans in upscale neighborhoods. This forced them to live in the poorest parts of town. To make matters worse for everyone, strikes at GM, Ford, and Chrysler caused them to move their operations out of Detroit. Many jobs were lost. In fact, by 1958, 20% of Detroit was unemployed. Tensions began to rise, and people had enough of being treated unfairly. That takes me to one of the craziest events in American history. July 23rd, 1967.
As Governor of the State of Michigan, I do hereby officially request the immediate deployment of federal troops into Michigan to assist state and local authorities in reestablishing law and order in the city of Detroit. I am joined in this request by Jerome P. Cavanaugh, Mayor of the city of Detroit.
Detroit went into complete chaos. For 6 days, the city was taken over and burned down. It got so out of control that the National Guard had to take over. This historical event changed America forever. It was the biggest resistance there had ever been. Detroit in 1967 set the tone for the rest of the country to stand up for what they deserve. It also completely changed Detroit's demographics. 75% of Detroit's white population would leave the city. Many businesses would leave the city as well, and things would begin to completely fall apart. Detroit lost over half its population, leaving entire neighborhoods of abandoned houses. The government began collecting less and less tax money, so schools closed all over the city. Police were laid off, and emergency services were cut. This became a huge problem.
Layoffs are looming.
But when someone calls 911, there isn't an ambulance to respond. It may take an hour. In Southwest Detroit a month ago, there were 3 shootings, separate There wasn't one ambulance to respond. The police had to transport. How long is that going to continue? Why is that allowed? Why is that acceptable? And it doesn't cheat me, and it doesn't cheat the members of our association. It cheats the people in this city, the grandmothers, the parents, the fathers, the husbands, the wives, the kids. It's absolutely absurd.
A lot of the things we take for granted in California, Detroit just didn't have. It got to the point where it could be classified as a third world city. Now, let's talk about crime, something Detroit is no stranger to. Let me compare them to other cities. In 2020, Detroit's homicide rate was 46 per 100,000. New York City's was 5.9. In Los Angeles, it was 8.7. And in Oakland, it was 25. Put that into perspective. Oakland is California's most dangerous city by far, and yet Detroit's homicide rate is nearly double. What the heck is going on in Detroit? How is the city so dangerous? Well, in this video, we are going to cover the east side of Detroit. But before we get into it, let me run the intro. Let me introduce you to 7 Mile, also known as SMB. The US Department of Justice classify them as the most dangerous in the city. SMB controls an area called the Red Zone. It's between 7 Mile and 8 Mile in the east side of Detroit. Why they call it the red zone? You'll see. This is where they do everything from pharmacy activities to recording studios and most importantly, catching A whole lot of people see their last moments in the red zone. In fact, they made a graphic of all those who lost their life in this small area. But let's talk about the pharmacy side of things, because that's what they're really known for. They run a huge operation that supplies West Virginia with everything it needs. Here's how it works. SMB buys large amounts for a low price in Detroit, then bring it out to West Virginia to sell at 4 times the cost. They get it there in 3 ways. They send guys in rental cars, they also send people on Greyhound buses, but lastly, they use stuffers. Stuffers are used for smaller deliveries. They're girls that hide everything in a certain area. They would pay them $1,000 per trip. The number one thing they stress is driving the speed limit the entire way. Use cruise control if you can, because you can't give any reason to get pulled over. SMB began making over $80,000 a week doing this. That's when they caught many people's attention with all their fancy cars and jewelry. They became big ballers in Detroit. SRTs, Scat Packs, and M-Series BMWs parked in the hood. They weren't the only ones getting rich in Detroit though. That brings me to their rivals. Well, they have a lot of rivals. In fact, they're surrounded by them. But their main rival is 6 Mile CHEDDAGROVE. These guys are located about a mile down from the red zone, specifically around Cedar Grove Street, thus the name CHEDDAGROVE. Their main representative is the rapper Peasy, whose real name is Philip Peaks. 6 Mile is filled with pharmacists as well, and they are known to help Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee with whatever they need. I think they deserve a shout out because both 6 Mile and 7 Mile are providing medicine to those in need. Here's how it works for 6 Mile. They attempt to make business connections in different states, and when a 6 Mile boy successfully makes a connection, it becomes his lane. This means that he is now responsible for this distribution. Both sides have similar methods, and they also have similar results. They are ballers. 6 Mile is up there just like their 7 Mile rivals. They weren't always known as rivals though. That started around 2014. That's when everyone in the east side would click up against SMB. 6 Mile CHEDDAGROVE, the Hustle Boys, and Max Out 220 would all band together. So it really became 7 Mile versus everyone. The craziest thing about all this is that both sides decided to make Instagram pages to post everybody they dropped. And yeah, this got crazy. So let's get into it. Actually, before that, let me say this. Before you guys run to the comments saying my information is wrong, just wait. This is what the police put out there, so this is how I'm going to tell it. If I were to actually give the street version of the story, you guys would call me a snitch, so you can't have it both ways. So let's get back to the story. It's 2014 and 7 Mile would take some big losses. First, Jason Gill, also known as White Boy, would get killed in February. Then, rapper Hardwork Jake would be hit multiple times in August. He would survive though. But none would be bigger than the top dog. Let me introduce you to Devin McClure. He goes by the nickname Block, and he was the leader of 7 Mile, and he was very well known for putting in work. May 1st, 2015. Block will be driving in his blue Crown Victoria down Hayes Street, right in the heart of 6 Mile CHEDDAGROVE territory. He would reach the end of 6 Mile territory when BAM! Right after it happened, the rivals would take to Instagram and post, "We got Block out the way. BMAN, you know you next." That brings me to BMAN, whose real name is Billy Arnold, another 7 Mile top dog. He knew the rivals wanted to get him too, so he made sure that he would get to them first. He wouldn't do it alone though. Block's girlfriend THANG was ready to ride for him. She would text BMAN right away, and she would set up a plan. She would drive around the 6 Mile area and scout. She would take notes of the cars the rivals drive and all their whereabouts. She would send all this information to BMAN, and that's when he would go to Instagram and post an official hit list. Yes, you heard that correctly. He would post pictures of those he wanted from 6 Mile. So just 6 hours after Block passed away, BMAN would get in his car and head down to the 6 Mile area. He would go look for a particular individual, a man named Philip Peaks, also known as Peasy. The rapper was nowhere to be found though. Instead, B-Man would find Peasy's friend Raphael Carter with his 2 young children. Regardless, he would hop out of his car and BAM! A week would go by and it's May 8th, 2015. THANG would give B-Man a crucial drop. She would tell him to pull up to 6 Mile, specifically Hayes Street. She would tell him to look for a brown Chevy Impala with tinted windows. B-Man would stop what he's doing and hop in his car. He would drive right down to 6 Mile, and that's when he sees the Chevy Impala. He hops out of the car and BAM! B-Man would get home and go straight to Instagram. He would post a picture of Devontae with a laughing emoji saying, "Got him." 2 days later would be Mother's Day, but B-Man was not with his mother that day. He would be sliding around 6 Mile. He would find a car with 4 6 Mile dudes inside of it, and then he would start clapping. The guys would run away. One of the guys is a man named Darnell Rogers, and he happens to have a baby on the way. On June 6, 2015, Darnell hosts a baby shower to welcome his new baby boy. Well, B-Man got news of the event, and in typical B-Man fashion, he was not having it. B-Man would pull up to the baby shower, and BAM!
Breaking news right now out of Roseville. 2 people shot at a banquet hall.
One woman tells us family and friends were there for a baby shower.
7 Action News reporter Jane Park live at the scene with the latest.
Roseville police are not releasing any details, but detectives have been out here for several hours at the Athena Hall Banquet Center on Gratiot, gathering evidence after this reported double shooting.
Darnell would survive, but regardless, 6 Mile would make sure to return the favor. 7 Mile's Aaron Carter would be sitting on his porch. That's when 2 men pull up. The men chase him through the house into the backyard and BAM! For a few months, everyone would assume that they wouldn't get caught, but things would come crashing down quick for 7 Mile. They threw a big party at a local club called The Horse. The celebration would be to remember Devin Block McClure. Well, after that night, B-Man would get pulled over. And this is where they found everything they needed. He, along with Arlandis Shaw and Keithon Porter, would go down. Block's girlfriend THANG would go down as well. And here's how it would all play out. THANG would get 10 years. Rapper Hardwork Sonny would get life. Arlandis Shaw would get life. And finally, B-Man would get more than life. Things would come crashing down for 6 Mile as well. In December 2016, they would get taken down. 11 guys from 6 Mile would go down, including Peasy. Well, eventually Peasy would get out and he would become one of Detroit's biggest rappers. He would still be in Detroit though, and on February 4th, 2018, he would perform at a rap battle on the west side of Detroit. Well, he ended up winning the rap battle and he was given $2,000. After the show, he would stop at a gas station with the money in his hand. That's when a man would pull up beside him and ask for the money. Peasy was not giving it up, so BAM! Well, Peasy would be alright, and he would elevate his career to even higher levels, but yet he would still be in Detroit. July 16th, 2021. Peasy would be asleep in his car, parked in his driveway. Mind you, this is way out in the suburbs of Rochester Hills. Well, someone gave out his drop because 2 men would pull up behind him. They would open his door and pull him out of the car. Peasy would wake up and start fighting the men off. The men would eventually leave, but they would be found. A man from Birmingham, Alabama named Marquise Pope would get arrested. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this first Detroit episode. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know what you want to see next. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. Peace!